Using her body, the Omega defended the Alpha King, and the pack saw an unbreakable connection. Tall mountains cut through the horizon like jagged teeth, and dark forests whispered secrets older than the oldest kings. Within this realm of magic and mystery, the Alpha King, Kaelin, ruled with both awe and fear. His presence alone could silence a hall of shouting warriors, and his eyes, cold, storm-gray, seemed to pierce through the soul itself. Yet Kaelin was a man imprisoned by power. A curse clung to his bloodline, amplifying his strength but isolating him from the warmth of trust or friendship. He had seen loyalty twisted into betrayal, love turned to chains, and over time, he had learned to rely only on his own fierce hands. Still, even a king cannot escape fate forever. The Omega, Leora, moved quietly at the edges of Kaelin's court. She was not a noble by birth, but something about her drew the gaze of all who dared to notice. Her eyes were a soft amber, warm and steady, holding a depth that no one could name. She carried herself with a quiet strength, yet few understood the power she bore. The elders whispered that she had a gift, a rare connection to the life force of others, one that could heal or shield, though it drained her spirit if used too freely. For weeks, Leora had served the Alpha from afar, her presence like a shadow at the edge of the torchlight. She listened, she learned, she observed, but she did not speak unless spoken to. She had no desire to draw attention. Attention in Kaelin's court could be dangerous. Every smile could hide a dagger, every compliment a trap. Yet even she could not ignore the quiet pull of the king's presence, a storm beneath his calm exterior that fascinated and frightened her at once. It was during the Festival of Shadows that destiny first reached its hand. The court was alive with music, the halls decorated in ribbons of silver and black. Nobles laughed, drank, and danced, unaware of the tension threading through the air like an unseen blade. Kaelin, as was his habit, remained apart, seated upon his throne of dark iron, eyes scanning the crowd with quiet vigilance. Then chaos erupted. From the western gates, a band of rival warriors stormed the court, cloaked in steel and malice. The air filled with the clatter of swords and the cries of panic. Nobles scattered, servants screamed, and the firelight danced across terrified faces. Kaelin rose instantly, his hand on the hilt of his sword, his movements precise and lethal. But even he had not expected what came next. A man lunged at him from the side, a blade aimed for his heart. Before anyone could react, Leora moved. In a heartbeat, she stepped forward, placing herself between Kaelin and the assassin. The blade struck her shoulder instead, and though she staggered, she did not fall. A warm, golden light pulsed from her chest, surrounding the Alpha in a shield of shimmering energy that deflected the attack. The court froze. The rival warrior stumbled back, eyes wide in shock, and Kaelin turned slowly, studying the girl who had just risked herself for him. The hall was silent for a heartbeat too long, the tension hanging thick. Then murmurs spread like wildfire. "The Omega," she saved him. "Did you see that? A shield of light. The prophecy, could it be her?" Kaelin's gaze met Leora's, and something strange and unspoken passed between them. Her amber eyes did not flicker with fear, they held steady, fierce, and calm. And in that moment, Kaelin felt a strange warmth in his chest, as if a door long locked had been nudged open. The attack was quickly repelled, the intruders scattered or captured, but the consequences of that moment were only beginning. The pack, the advisors, warriors, and loyal nobles watched closely. A bond had been revealed, one that could not be hidden. The unbreakable connection whispered of something more than simple courage. It spoke of destiny, of lives entwined by forces neither fully understood. In the quiet that followed, Kaelin approached her. He did not speak immediately. His eyes, normally so unreadable, were troubled. He reached out and lightly touched the edge of her hand where the pulse of her magic still lingered. It was warm, almost electric. Leora did not pull away. She had expected fear or awe, but not the depth of quiet recognition in the Alpha's gaze. You saved me, Kalen said at last, his voice low, almost rough with emotion. Do you know what that could mean? Leora shook her head, though a small part of her already knew. I did what I had to, she said softly. Her voice carried no pride, only honesty. You didn't deserve to die today. Kalen's jaw tightened. I have lived many years thinking myself untouchable, yet you risked yourself without hesitation. That is not common courage, Leora. That is something else. Something I have not seen before. The court buzzed with speculation. Some whispered that the Omega was fated to be bound to the Alpha, a bond foretold in the ancient scrolls of Urindor. Others feared the implications, wondering if such a connection could weaken the king's authority. And some, quietly, admired the unspoken loyalty and bravery that shone between them. Later, as the evening wound down and the torches cast long, dancing shadows across the stone halls, Kalen and Leora found themselves alone in the northern gardens. The air was thick with the scent of night-blooming flowers and the moon hung low, a silver sentinel over the kingdom. Kalen's voice broke the silence. The pack sees you now, he said, his tone a mixture of warning and curiosity. They see what I am only beginning to understand myself. This connection. It is not just about saving me, is it? Leora's heart thumped in her chest. She had felt it, yes, a thread weaving her life with his in a way that both terrified and exhilarated her. I do not know what it is yet, she admitted, but I know it is there, and it is strong. Kalen studied her, the king who had never allowed anyone close, who had built walls around himself higher than any fortress. For a moment, the man behind the throne seemed fragile, human even, and Leora felt an unexpected pang of compassion. She wanted to reach out, to bridge the distance between them, but the shadows whispered that the bond would demand more than simple gestures. It would demand trust, courage, and sacrifice. Before either could speak further, a sharp cry echoed from the castle gates. Kalen's eyes darkened instantly, the storm returning. Leora felt the pull of fear, but also the pull of destiny. Whatever threat awaited, they would face it together. In the silence that followed, the connection pulsing between them was undeniable. The Omega and the Alpha were no longer separate. Something ancient, something powerful, had begun to weave their fates together. And though neither fully understood it yet, the prophecy had begun its course. As the moonlight touched their faces, Kalen's hand brushed lightly against hers, a silent promise of protection, of challenge, of something more. Leora looked up at him, amber eyes shining, heart pounding. She could not name the bond, could not yet define what it meant, but she knew this. Her life had changed forever. And the kingdom of Urindor would never be the same again. The morning sun rose over Urindor, painting the stone towers of the castle in soft gold. Yet even in the light, shadows lingered. Kalen, the Alpha King, stood on the highest balcony, his eyes scanning the distant forests. The echo of the horn from the night before still lingered in his mind. The warning had been clear. Someone or something was moving closer, testing the strength of the kingdom and the limits of its king. Leora walked beside him, her steps quiet on the cold stone. Her shoulder, still bruised from the attack, throbbed with the memory of the sword that had grazed her. Yet she did not complain. She had chosen her place, at Kalen's side, and now more than ever she felt the weight of the unspoken bond between them. "The pack talks," Kalen said finally, his voice low, almost distant. He did not look at her, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "They whisper of prophecy, of your gift, and of me. Some believe it will strengthen the kingdom. Others fear it will bring ruin." Leora's amber eyes met his, steady and unwavering. "Let them talk," she said softly. "I am not here for their approval. I am here because I need to be, and you need me. That is enough." Kalen turned to her then, his storm-gray eyes meeting hers. There was a tension in the air, a mix of admiration, fear, and something deeper neither could name. "Do you understand the danger?" he asked. "Not just the enemies, but the bond itself. Magic like yours, it can save lives, but it can also consume them." Leora felt the weight of his words. She had felt the power inside her stir the night before, the golden shield that had protected him. It was a part of her, yes, but it also frightened her. If she used too much, if she let it flow unchecked, it could leave her empty. And yet she could not ignore the pull toward him, the strange force that seemed to link their hearts and souls in ways that defied logic. Before Kalen could reply, a messenger arrived, breathless and pale. "My king," he said, bowing quickly. The scouts report movement in the northern forest, a large group of armored riders heading this way. They do not belong to any known clan. Kalen's eyes narrowed. "They are coming," he said simply. His hand brushed against Leora's without thought, a silent acknowledgement of trust, of connection. "Prepare the guard. And you," he looked at her, "stay close. I do not want to face this without you." Leora nodded. She had expected danger, had trained herself for it, but hearing it spoken aloud brought a thrill of fear and excitement. She was not merely an observer anymore. She was part of the battle, part of the story unfolding around them, and she would not shrink from it. The northern forest was thick with mist when they arrived. The trees rose like silent sentinels, their leaves whispering secrets to the wind. The sound of hooves grew louder, the rhythm of movement echoing through the fog. Kalen's warriors spread out, forming lines of defense, but Leora felt it first, a stirring in her chest, a pulse of magic that seemed to warn her of what was coming. "Something is not right," she whispered. "These riders, they are different. I can feel it." Kalen's eyes scanned the shadows. "You are right," he said. "They carry more than steel. Something dark lingers around them, magic, yes, but twisted, dangerous." The enemy emerged, cloaked in black and silver, their faces hidden behind masks that glinted in the dim light. They charged with a speed that startled even Kalen's seasoned guards. The first clash of swords rang through the forest, metal striking metal, cries of anger and pain echoing through the trees. Leora moved instinctively, stepping between Kalen and a rider who had broken through the lines. Her hands glowed with a faint golden light, and the air around her shimmered. The rider recoiled, as if struck by an invisible force, and fell back into the mist. Kalen's eyes widened, not in fear but in awe. Her power had grown stronger overnight, stronger than he had imagined. As the battle raged, Leora felt a connection with Kalen unlike anything she had known. It was as if their hearts beat in rhythm, their minds brushing against each other in fleeting, unspoken ways. She could sense his fear, his determination, his anger, and his hope all at once. And he could feel hers, steady and unwavering, even as she poured her strength into protecting him. Hours seemed to pass in the blink of an eye. The enemy began to retreat, driven back not just by swords but by the strange force that flowed between Omega and Alpha. The forest was quiet again, except for the soft groans of wounded men and the rustle of leaves in the wind. Kalen sheathed his sword and turned to Leora, his chest rising and falling with the effort of battle. "You are extraordinary," he said, his voice low and rough. "Do you know how dangerous that was? Not just for them, but for you. Every time you use your gift, you risk yourself." Leora shook her head, exhaustion and relief mingling in her expression. "I risked myself for you," she said simply. "Because you are worth it. And because I cannot ignore what connects us." Kalen's hand found hers again, their fingers brushing. There was a tension in that touch, a mixture of trust, power, and something deeper. The connection between them pulsed with energy, and for a moment the world seemed to hold its breath. Yet even in victory, shadows lingered. Kalen's advisors whispered in hushed tones, casting wary glances at the Omega. Some admired her courage, others feared the bond. And from the forest, unseen eyes watched, calculating, waiting. The victory was not complete. The danger was far from over. That evening, back in the castle, Leora walked through the gardens alone, letting the cool night air calm her mind. The golden glow of her power had faded, leaving only the lingering warmth of connection with Kalen. She thought of the battle, of the fear and excitement, and of the strange pull between them. She did not fully understand it, but she knew it was real. And she knew it would change everything. A soft rustle in the bushes made her turn. Kalen stepped into the moonlight, his expression unreadable. "You should not be out here alone," he said, his voice low, almost gentle. "I am not afraid," Leora said, though she admitted to herself that a small part of her was. "I have learned to trust the bond between us, and I trust you." Kalen studied her for a long moment. "That bond," he said finally, "is stronger than I imagined. I have spent years alone, keeping everyone at a distance, and now I feel it with you. I cannot ignore it even if I wanted to." Leora stepped closer, her heart pounding. "Neither can I," she said softly. "It is not just protection or power. It is something more. Something I do not fully understand, but I feel it, and I cannot deny it." The wind moved through the garden, carrying the scent of flowers and earth. The connection between them pulsed, a quiet, steady rhythm, a reminder that they were linked in ways both magical and emotional. Neither spoke for a moment, letting the silence carry their thoughts, their fears, and their unspoken understanding. But the peace was fragile. From the shadows of the northern forest, new threats stirred. Whispers of dark magic and twisted ambition reached the castle, hinting that the battle was far from over. Kalen's gaze turned toward the horizon, eyes sharp and alert. "We have grown stronger," he said finally, his voice resolute. "Together. But this is only the beginning. The enemies we face are not just men. They are forces that seek to break what binds us. We must be ready." Leora nodded, feeling the weight of his words. She had seen the danger, felt it brush against her magic, and understood that their bond would be tested in ways neither could imagine. Yet, she also knew that together they could face it. As the night deepened, the castle lights flickered against the walls, and the moon rose high above Urindor. The Omega and Alpha stood side by side, bound by courage, trust, and an unspoken connection that defied both logic and fear. And somewhere, beyond the mountains and forests, unseen eyes watched, waiting for the moment to strike again. The bond between Leora and Kalen was no longer a secret. It was a force that would shape the kingdom, test their hearts, and challenge everything they thought they knew about power, loyalty, and love. The night whispered of shadows, of trials to come, and of a connection that could not be broken. And for the first time, both Omega and Alpha understood the truth of destiny. They were meant to face the darkness together. The first light of dawn barely touched the mountains of Urindor when Leora awoke to a silence that was heavier than any she had felt before. The castle seemed still, yet her instincts, sharp as ever, told her that danger had already crept closer. The bond she shared with Kalen pulsed in her chest like a warning, a silent heartbeat that whispered of unseen threats. She rose quietly and made her way to the northern battlements. The wind carried a chill, and the mist clung to the stone like a cloak. Kalen was already there, tall and imposing, eyes scanning the horizon. His presence was both commanding and strangely vulnerable, as if the weight of his crown pressed down not just on his shoulders, but on his very heart. "They are coming," Kalen said without turning. His voice was steady, but Leora heard the undercurrent of tension. "I feel it. Something dark, stronger than before, and they are not like ordinary enemies." Leora placed her hand lightly on the stone wall, closing her eyes to sense the stirrings in the forest. Her gift, the invisible thread that connected her to the life forces around her, pulsed with unease. "They are powerful," she murmured, "and they are close, but we can face them together." Kalen finally turned to her, the storm in his eyes softening for a brief moment. "Together," he echoed, almost a promise. And though neither spoke of it, both knew that the word carried weight far beyond battle. By mid-morning, scouts reported that the Dark Riders were gathering at the edge of the northern forest, near the cliffs that overlooked the river Vera. Kalen called a council of his closest warriors. Leora stood beside him, silent, letting the others plan while she felt the rhythm of the land, the tension in the air, and the subtle stirrings of magic that the enemy carried. "They bring more than swords," she said quietly to Kaelin. "There is dark magic with them. Something unnatural." Kaelin's jaw tightened. "Then we fight not only with strength but with wisdom, and you," his gaze softened briefly. "I need you close. Do not let the bond falter. Whatever comes, it will test us, both of us." The day passed slowly, filled with preparation. Weapons were checked, horses readied, and defenses strengthened. Yet, for all the strategy and readiness, an unease lingered. Leora felt it like a low hum beneath her skin, the sense that the coming battle was not just physical, but emotional, a test of hearts and souls as much as swords. As night fell, the forest seemed to close in around the castle. The first flashes of firelight appeared in the distance, followed by the dull thunder of hooves. Leora stood at Kaelin's side atop the battlements, her gift glowing faintly, ready to shield and protect. The enemy emerged, cloaked in shadows that seemed to ripple unnaturally. Their eyes glinted through the masks, cold and cruel, and the air around them pulsed with a dark magic that made the hairs on Leora's arms stand on end. They were not just warriors, they were something else, something that could twist fear into power. Kaelin's army met them at the cliff's edge, swords raised, shields ready. But the battle that followed was unlike any other. The Dark Riders moved with a speed and precision that seemed almost impossible, striking not just at flesh, but at will and courage. Leora's shield flared with golden light as she deflected blow after blow, her magic linking with Kaelin's presence, strengthening his resolve and protecting his soldiers. Hours passed in a blur of movement, strategy, and instinct. Leora felt exhaustion claw at her limbs, but the connection between her and Kaelin pulsed stronger than ever. She could feel his fear, his anger, his determination, and he could feel hers. In the heat of battle, it was as if their hearts beat in rhythm, a silent bond that neither could break, even in the chaos of war. Then, in the midst of the clash, a figure emerged from the shadows, a warrior taller and darker than the rest, carrying a staff that glimmered with cursed energy. The pulse of magic from the enemy was amplified, and Leora felt a sudden, sharp pain in her chest as if the bond itself was being tested. Kaelin stepped forward, sword in hand, and met the figure's gaze. "Who are you?" he demanded, voice carrying across the battlefield. The figure laughed, a cold, cruel sound that made the blood in Leora's veins chill. "I am the shadow that haunts your legacy, Alpha," the stranger said. "And tonight, I will see if your bond is strong enough to survive the darkness I bring." The cursed warrior unleashed a wave of energy that swept across the battlefield, toppling soldiers and throwing shields aside. Leora felt her magic strain to protect Kaelin, her body trembling with the effort. Every time she reached out, her bond with him pulsed like fire through her veins, lending strength to both of them, but also leaving her breathless, drained. Kaelin fought with a ferocity born of desperation, each strike of his sword precise, each movement calculated. Yet he could feel the darkness pressing against him, trying to seep into his mind, weaken his courage. And through it all, Leora's presence, steady and unwavering, reminded him of what he was fighting for, not just his life, but the bond that connected them, the unspoken trust that gave him strength beyond his own. In a moment of clarity, Kaelin shouted, "Focus, Leora. Together." She nodded, drawing every ounce of her power, and extended her hands. Golden light flowed from her, coiling around the cursed warrior, pushing against the darkness like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The enemy staggered, hissed, and then collapsed, the magic dissipating into the night. The battlefield grew quiet again. Soldiers stood among the fallen, bruised and weary, yet alive. Leora sank to her knees, exhausted, feeling the bond that had guided them pulse one last time before settling into a steady rhythm. Kaelin knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You are incredible," he said softly, voice hoarse. I have never seen such courage, such strength. You saved more than my life tonight. You saved the hearts of everyone here." Leora smiled faintly, pain and relief mingling in her expression. "We saved each other," she said. "The bond, it is stronger than I imagined." "I felt everything you felt, Kaelin. Fear, hope, anger, but also courage and love. I think we are stronger together than apart." Kaelin's eyes softened, the storm behind them finally calming. "I see it now," he said. "I see that connection. Not just magic, but trust and understanding and something more. Something I never thought I could have." For a long moment neither spoke, letting the silence hold them. Around them the battlefield lay quiet, the mist rolling through the trees and the moonlight casting pale silver over the scene. But peace, as always, was fragile. From the shadows of the cliffs, Leora sensed movement. Another figure, this one cloaked in darkness yet lighter than the cursed warrior before, watched them silently. Leora's pulse quickened, not with fear but with anticipation. The trials were not over. The bond had passed this test, but greater challenges were coming. Kaelin stood, placing a hand over hers, anchoring her. "Whatever comes," he said, voice low but steady, "we will face it together. This bond, it will not break, not while we stand side by side." The Omega nodded, feeling the power of the connection resonate through her. Her exhaustion was still there, but it was mingled with a fierce determination. She would not let anything, not even darkness itself, sever what they shared. As the night deepened, the two of them stood atop the cliffs, looking over the forest where shadows still lingered. The wind carried whispers of trials to come, of battles that would test not just their bodies but their hearts. Yet in the quiet, the bond pulsed steady and strong, a reminder that together they could face any darkness. And far beyond the mountains, hidden eyes watched, calculating, waiting. The next challenge was approaching, a force more dangerous than any before. But for the first time, the Omega and the Alpha were not afraid. They had faced the crucible, and though the flames of trial had burned hot, their bond had only grown stronger. The forest whispered of shadows, of courage, and of a connection that would not yield. The hearts of Leora and Kaelin beat together, steady and true, and the kingdom of Urindor seemed to pause in awe at the power of a bond forged not just by magic, but by trust, sacrifice, and love. They would face the next storm together, stronger than ever. And the darkness that waited would soon learn that the Omega and Alpha were united, not just in battle, but in heart and soul. The sky over Urindor was a deep violet, the last light of dusk slipping behind the mountains. The castle stood in silence, though the wind carried a restless tension. Leora and Kaelin stood side by side on the northern cliffs, their gazes fixed on the dark forest where shadows moved unnaturally. They had survived the previous trials, the attacks of cursed warriors and dark riders, but both knew that this was the ultimate test. "The energy," Leora whispered, her amber eyes scanning the twisting shapes in the mist. "It is older than anything we have faced. I can feel it in the earth, in the trees, it is alive." Kaelin placed a protective hand over hers. "Then we face it together," he said, "as we always have. The bond we share, it will not break, no matter what comes." The shadows shifted, and from their midst emerged a figure unlike any Leora had ever seen. Cloaked in darkness, its form twisted and shifting, it exuded power that made the air itself tremble. Eyes of molten gold glowed beneath the hood, and a voice both deep and echoing carried across the cliffs. "So," it said, "the bond that you call unbreakable, let us see if it can withstand true darkness." Kaelin's grip on his sword tightened. "We will not let you harm this kingdom," he said, his voice steady but resolute. "Or us." The figure raised a hand, and shadows coiled like snakes across the ground, moving toward them with terrifying speed. Leora felt her gift stir, a warning and a challenge combined. She drew a deep breath and let her magic flow, a golden aura expanding from her chest. It collided with the darkness, pushing back, weaving with Kaelin's presence, their connection amplifying the power of both. The first clash was violent. Shadows struck with the force of wind and stone, twisting reality around them. But the Omega and Alpha moved in unison. Their hearts beat together, a rhythm that guided their actions, strengthened their defenses, and gave them courage beyond what ordinary mortals could possess. Leora felt exhaustion pressing at her, her limbs trembling from the strain of channeling so much energy. Yet, when she looked at Kalen, she saw the same determination reflected in his eyes. He was not just her king, not just the Alpha, he was her partner in every sense of the word. And she could not, would not, let him face this alone. The shadow figure attacked again, this time striking directly at Kalen. Leora's magic flared, forming a shield of golden light that absorbed the impact. A wave of energy surged through her, and for a moment she thought she would collapse. Kalen reached for her, his hand steadying her, and in that instant their connection pulsed like a living thing. "You are stronger than you know," Kalen whispered, his voice low and steady. "And I am stronger because of you. We are not alone. Together we are unstoppable." Leora's pulse quickened, warmth flooding through her despite the chill of the shadows. She drew every ounce of strength from their bond, every flicker of trust, every thread of love and courage. The golden light spread outward, pushing the darkness back inch by inch, as if the very earth recognized the power of the bond and rose to protect them. The shadow recoiled, hissing and twisting, but it was far from defeated. "You will not win," it spat. "This bond, it cannot survive the truth of your hearts." Kalen's eyes narrowed. "Then we will prove you wrong." He stepped forward, moving with precision and power, and the connection between him and Leora flared, illuminating the cliffs in golden light. They were not two separate beings anymore. They were a single force, a bond of strength, trust, and unspoken understanding. The battle became a dance of light and shadow. The darkness lashed and surged, but Leora and Kalen moved as one, their connection guiding every action. She could feel the fear, anger, and determination within him, and he could feel her courage, patience, and unwavering commitment. Together, they countered every strike, every wave of cursed energy. But the shadow had one final move. With a roar that shook the cliffs, it sent a pulse of energy that aimed directly at the bond itself, striking at the connection between Omega and Alpha. Leora felt a sudden void, a pulling at the core of her being, threatening to sever the link that had carried them through every trial. Her knees buckled and she cried out, but Kalen caught her, holding her close. "You are not alone," he said, his voice firm and grounding. "I am with you. Always feel me, trust me. Our bond is stronger than this." Leora focused, letting every thought, every heartbeat, every flicker of love and trust flow into the bond. The golden light surged brighter than ever, surrounding them both, radiating outward in waves that pushed the shadows back, breaking their hold on the cliffs. The dark figure screamed, its form unraveling under the intensity of their unity. And then, silence. The forest, the cliffs, the air itself seemed to exhale, calm settling over the land for the first time in days. Leora leaned against Kalen, breathing heavily, drained but unbroken. He held her, steady and strong, a pillar against the fading wind. "You did it," he whispered. "We did it." Leora smiled faintly, exhaustion and relief mingling. "Together," she said, "always together." Kalen looked out across the horizon where the first rays of sunlight were breaking over the mountains. "The kingdom is safe," he said, "for now. But the bond we share, it is more than protection. It is hope, strength, and a future. We have changed everything." The soldiers and advisors who had followed them emerged from the shadows, watching the pair atop the cliffs. Whispers of awe and respect spread quickly. The bond was no longer a secret. The people of Urindor could see the power, courage, and trust that united the Omega and Alpha. And in that recognition, the kingdom found new hope. Leora stepped closer to Kalen, her hand brushing his. "You are not the man I feared," she said softly. "You are stronger, braver, and capable of more than I ever imagined." Kalen turned, his eyes stormy yet tender. And you are extraordinary, Leora. You have risked everything, not just to protect me, but to save the kingdom. Your courage, your heart, they have changed me, and I will never forget it." The wind carried their words across the cliffs, the light of dawn painting the kingdom in gold and purple. In that moment, neither felt fear, doubt, or loneliness. They were united in purpose, in heart, and in destiny. The bond that had been tested by shadow, fear, and battle had emerged stronger, unbreakable, and shining brighter than the darkest night. Days passed, and the kingdom began to heal. Soldiers returned, the forests grew calm again, and the people whispered of the bond that had saved them. Kaelin and Leora trained, guided, and protected side by side. Each day strengthened not only their connection but their understanding of each other, the fears, hopes, and dreams they had once hidden from the world. And yet, there were moments of quiet, stolen beneath the stars, when the storm within them softened. Leora would rest her head on Kaelin's shoulder, feeling the steady pulse of his heart, and he would hold her hand, grounding her, reminding them both of what they had fought for. In those moments, words were unnecessary. The bond spoke for itself, a language beyond magic, beyond power, beyond fear. It was not just survival that defined them, it was transformation. Kaelin, once isolated and burdened by his curse, learned to trust, to feel, and to love without fear. Leora, once a quiet observer, became a force of courage, wisdom, and strength, her gift amplified not only by magic, but by the heart that had been nurtured through struggle and sacrifice. Together, they had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. Together, they had proven that true strength was not in dominance, but in trust, love, and unity. And together, they would lead Erendor into a new era, one where courage, compassion, and connection were the greatest powers of all. As the sun rose higher over the kingdom, Kaelin and Leora stood atop the northern cliffs once more. The wind played with their hair, the river below sparkled in sunlight, and the forest stretched endlessly, calm and alive. The bond between them pulsed steady and strong, a living testament to what they had endured and what they had built together. Leora smiled, her amber eyes shining. This is just the beginning," she said. Kaelin nodded, his storm-gray eyes softening into warmth. "Yes. Together we can face anything, and nothing, no shadow, no curse, no darkness, will ever break what we share." The kingdom below them awoke in peace, the echoes of past trials fading like mist. And on the cliffs above, the Omega and the Alpha stood side by side, unbreakable, transformed, and ready to face whatever the future held. Their hearts beat together, their hands clasped, their souls intertwined. The bond that had been tested in fire and shadow now shone like gold in the morning light, a promise eternal, a connection unshakable, and a love that could withstand anything. The kingdom of Erendor had found its true guardians, and the legend of the Omega and the Alpha would be remembered for generations.